In 1895, Alfred Clark created what was considered to be the first special effect. This effect was the stop trick. Clark was filming a reenactment of the beheading of Mary, Queen of Scotland, when he instructed an actor to place her head on the block. He then stopped the camera and replaced the actor with a dummy, which allowed the executioner to sever the dummy's head, appearing that it was a real execution. Georges Méliès then discovered the same stop trick accidentally while experiencing a camera jam on a street in Paris. When he screened the film, he noticed that the stop trick made a truck turn into a hearse and men into women. Méliès's most famous film, A Trip to the Moon, featured a combination of live action and animation and also incorporated miniatures and matte painting work. During the 1920s and 30s, special effect techniques were improved and refined by the motion picture industry. One technique included rear projection. Animation at that time was accomplished with drawings. In 1914, Winsor McCay made Gertie the dinosaur. Stop-motion animation progressed with three-dimensional models in Willis O'Brien's The Lost World in 1925 and King Kong in 1933. Fritz Lang's film Metropolis included many impressive special effects for the time, including its innovative use of miniatures and matte paintings, which created worlds that have never existed. In 1968, Stanley Kubrick released a film that changed the definition of science fiction. The film was 2001: A Space Odyssey. Stanley Kubrick assembled his own special effects team rather than use an in-house effects unit. The spaceship miniatures were very detailed and carefully filmed to create a realistic depth of field. On a soundstage, Kubrick perfected the recreation of the African vistas during the Dawn of Man sequence. Scenes with zero gravity were created with hidden wires, mirror shots, and full rotating sets. The film's finale was created by Douglas Trumbull using a new technique called slit scan. The slit scan photography technique is a photographic process where a movable slide into which a slit has been cut is inserted between the camera and the subject to be photographed, causing blurriness or deformity. In the late 1960s and the early 1970s, the industries went through a recession, which caused the shutting down of studios' in-house effect units. Many effect technicians then founded their own companies. In 1977, Steven Spielberg came out with his film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Doug Trumbull from 2001: A Space Odyssey was the effects specialist for Close Encounters. Trumbull developed his own motion control system and also intentional lens flare to add to the effect of the flying saucers. He did this by reflecting shapes of light into the camera lenses. The first use of CGI was in 1967 with a film called Hummingbird. Hummingbird was a 10-minute animated film. The subject was a line drawing of a hummingbird for which a sequence of movements appropriate to the bird were programmed. Over 30,000 images, comprising some 25 motion sequences, were generated by the computer. The film Future World has the first use of 3D computer graphics for animated hand and face, using 2D digital compositing to materialize characters over a background. In 1981, the first use of a CGI character was in the film Looker. In 1995, Toy Story became the first CGI feature-length film.
Greetings, I am Buzz Lightyear. I come in peace.
In 1997, The Titanic was the first wide-release feature film, with major elements rendered under the open-source Linux operating system, also including a number of advances specifically in the rendering of flowing water.
Let's say this is an absolute human, and this is a, kind of a talking moose. As you approach human, our attraction to the character goes down. And then at the last second, just when you get to a true human look, it goes back up. Well, we needed to get on the far side of that dip in the response curve, which is called the uncanny valley. And we needed to get to the opposite side where we believed, we don't have to necessarily believe that it's 100% photoreal, and we don't have to necessarily believe that they actually exist, but we have to believe in them as emotional creatures. And so we came up with the head rig. We call it the head rig. It's basically just a kind of helmet, very tight conformal kind of skull cap that's based on a life cast of the actor's head and a laser scan. So it fits very tightly and smoothly and comfortably. And then there's a carbon fiber boom that comes out with a little camera on the front of it. And that camera shoots the face in a nulled out close-up. So even though the actor's moving all around, running, jumping, yelling, screaming, jumping off stuff, jumping over logs, running flat out, whatever, we're getting that facial performance absolutely locked off.
In 2012, The Hobbit had the first use of CGI in a feature film at a high frame rate. There are various practical effect techniques, some of which include the use of aerial rigging to simulate flight, weather effects such as sprinkler systems to create rain, and fog machines to create smoke. The use of prosthetic makeup, the use of animatronics, or the use of puppetry. Squibs are also used to create the illusion of gunshot wounds.
You're positive?
I don't know what positive means.
It means you're sure.
Yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, I'm sure that's Ellis Brittle. I'm positive he did.
Pyrotechnics are used for the appearance of fire and explosions. Miniature effects are also used, which is the use of scale models that are photographed in a way that they appear fully sized. CGI techniques have improved tremendously over the last couple decades. Common CGI effects include keying actors or models through blue screening or green screening, digital or traditional paintings or photographs which serve as background plates for keyed or rotoscoped elements, modeling, computer graphics, lighting, texturing, animating, the rendering of computer-generated 3D characters, particle effects, and digital sets. Digital effects are the various processes by which imagery is created and/or manipulated with or from photographic assets. Digital effects often involve the integration of still photography and computer-generated imagery, CGI, in order to create environments which look realistic but would be dangerous, costly, or simply impossible to capture in camera. At the end of this scene of The Dark Knight, Batman single-handedly flips an 18-wheeler across one of the busiest streets in Chicago. Christopher Nolan and his effects crew used an actual 18-wheeler truck with an air piston attached to the underside to achieve this near-impossible truck flip. Most filmmakers would have resorted to the cheaper alternative, CGI, but not Nolan.
So I am in my dimension, in my size, and now I want to reach his dimension, which is half of mine. So I just basically have to work on join him.
For Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Gondry relied on a technique called forced perspective. This technique uses set design and camera angles to create the illusion that objects or people are larger or smaller than they actually are. The very clever illusion in this scene of 2001: A Space Odyssey was accomplished through a massive centrifuge set, which rotated while the camera remained fixed on a mount. Another simple yet effective illusion Kubrick creates in this film is the floating pen. For the faraway scenes, Kubrick simply attached a very thin filament to a pen and dangled it from above. And for the close-ups, the pen was attached to a transparent sheet of acrylic, which was gently wiggled in front of the camera. This effect was created by Chris Corbould. Corbould accomplished this effect by using strategically placed air cannons throughout the area. He even added in a motorcycle and a car flipping over to intensify the effect.
Around the available technology and to be able to sort of see the next step and take a chance on it. He's always a risk taker, and was being someone who would understand that it was going to be hard to do.
I recall it being sort of 10 or 12 months of hell getting these shots done, and it was like pulling teeth because the render times are so horrendously long.
Our entire computer graphics department had 900 megabytes of online storage. That was it. And we had to do the entire show with it.
So much had to be learned about refractive ray tracing and surface reflections and how you animate and how you take the facial data from the actors, which was done by laser scan, and how you animate with that, and how much of it is keyframe animation and how much of it we actually had the actors do themselves. So there was quite a bit involved in it.
James Cameron announced his idea of Avatar in 1996, but was forced to put the project on hold until over a decade later when the technology was advanced enough in order to make it. For Avatar, the studio has created over 1,800 stereoscopic photorealistic visual effects shots, many of them of the Na'vi characters. The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey was shot with 48 FPS high frame rate cameras, new performance capture technology, and motion-controlled 3D camera rigs. Andy Serkis's performance as Gollum was completely represented through the motion capture. With this technology, they were able to capture all of Andy Serkis's facial expressions and body movements, a goal that the filmmakers had since the Lord of the Rings movies. Seeing how much we have advanced throughout the last decade, it seems as if the possibilities of film are now endless.